Debate is intense over whether the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, should still be in his job, his judgement in question over appointing Peter Mandelson as US ambassador, even though Mandelson's links to Jeffrey Epstein were known at the time of his appointment. What wasn't known, says the Prime Minister, was what he called, quote, the depths and darkness of that relationship. Mr Mandelson's time as ambassador has ended in disgrace, a Labour peer no more, and facing a criminal investigation over allegedly passing confidential government financial secrets to Epstein via email when he was business secretary under the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown's spoken to reporters today saying Keir Starmer was too slow to do the right thing, that the situation he now faces is serious. He still says, though, he believes Mr Starmer has integrity. I want to bring in John McTernan, a political strategist, former advisor to Tony Blair, party political secretary at the time, PPS, 2005 to 2007. Great to have you on the programme tonight, John. First of all, just a quote to you, Gordon Brown, saying this about Keir Starmer, saying he was too slow to do the right thing. Am I to read from that he was too quick in doing the wrong thing?
Look, I think Gordon said correctly he was wrong to bring Peter Mandelson back into government. He was tricked, misled, hoodwinked, and he believes the same happened to Keir. And Gordon very helpfully set out a whole range of changes that could be brought in by the UK government to clean up politics. It's been a terrible week for the Labour Party, terrible week for the Labour government. And to be honest, I still have yet to hear any sensible explanation of why a man, Peter Mandelson, who had stayed in the townhouse, the Manhattan townhouse of Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, after he had been convicted of paedophilia. So why would you believe you could have a job in public life after you stayed in the townhouse of a convicted paedophile after his conviction? I think that is a big question. Why Peter Mandelson put himself forward for this, for the role of ambassador, and it seems that the scale of the emails that have come out are that he was avaricious, he was greedy, and it seems to be Epstein's attraction to powerful men was by and large money. And that is a terrible thing for any politician, particularly bad for Labour politicians. We're meant to be the party of equality, not the party of getting rich quick.
It's clear from listening to you, you've had a long political life and love for the Labour Party. This is something I imagine you're seething about, just what it does to the party. When you talk about...
Yes, I started when Peter Mandelson... When Peter Mandelson was nominated, when he put his name around, I thought impossible for the government to do so in the light of what was already known for investigations in the US. I feel very sad. I felt very sad for a very long time about this. And now, like many other people in the Labour Party, members, activists, MPs, ministers, advisors, I feel very, very angry. A sense, I suppose it's because if you work with somebody and they've been concealing this, you feel personally betrayed. You've heard it in the words of Gordon Brown. I can't better Gordon Brown's words. You can see that Keir Starmer was seething this week, and he's not a man who shows visible emotion very much. He was angry at the dispatch box. I'm sure he's as angry with himself as he is with Peter Mandelson. This is a failure of vetting, a failure of leadership, a failure of processes, and a failure really to look somebody in the eye and go, but you've done things in the public domain already which rule you out. And I think that's the there may be a tragedy in Peter Mandelson's character, but he has really damaged the Labour Party this week.
Keir Starmer, given what you said before, should he go?
Look, I think Keir Starmer won't be the Prime Minister at the next general election. There's all kinds of reasons for that. I think the government has made many, many missteps in poor policies, and the government is itself fighting against itself. You know, Keir Starmer's office, number 10 Downing Street, attacked West Streeting, who's one of his closest allies, just attacked him last year. So there's something in the Labour Party that needs to be resolved. But at the moment, we've got a process in place. All the emails are going to come out from all the advisors, all the people in number 10, all the ministers, all the contact with Peter Mandelson. And I think that is going to be a moment for going, these links were too wide and too deep, because I already suspect there are people who were contacted by Peter, in constant contact with them, and this will draw a shadow over a lot of people. I think it's right to go through the process. It's right to consider it. It's right to bring in what Gordon Brown's suggesting, methods for cleaning up government, and the Labour Party in government, the Labour government, needs to do something gigantic to win back the trust of the public after this. This is a thing that's dragging the whole reputation of the party, actually the whole reputation of traditional political parties down with it, just as the Tories under Boris Johnson, the fall of Boris Johnson damaged the Labour Party as a mainstream party. I think all of politics is losing trust. So therefore, it's in all of our interests to get this right, to get the response right.
To stay on in his job, if you think it is possible, you gave me an interesting answer saying you don't think he'll be there. You didn't say directly whether you think he should go. But to stay on in his job, what do you think he needs to convince people of? What does he need to say, Keir Starmer? Because to the outside looking in, the emphasis is on how much he knew at the time. From what you've just said at this moment,
that's it. Yeah, I think,
this could have been avoided a long time ago.
Yes, I think the revelations about Peter Mandelson would have come out anyway, because the Epstein files have been released because of an American judicial process. There would then have had to be a reckoning with a former cabinet minister, a former senior figure in the party, somebody who has still been an advisor, was an advisor to Labour in opposition, Labour in government. And so therefore there would have been a reckoning, but very different from the reckoning you make with somebody you appoint to be an official. So I would not have made the appointment in the first place. I thought people said it was high risk and potentially high reward. I always thought it was high risk, high risk. So that you have to have an account of why you did it when it was so risky. You have to have an account of how you were lied to. I think Keir believes that the process will reveal that Peter Mandelson was in the wrong. The danger is always in these situations. We know who the real victims are. It is the girls. It is the young women whose voices were not heard because their voices were raised against men with riches, men who ran the system, men who made the system not listen to them. And at the heart of all this, there's a deep, deep misogyny, a deep distrust of women, a deep distrust of girls and their voices. The justice is coming slowly across Europe to political figures who fawned over Jeffrey Epstein. You read the emails are partly sickening because the tone of voice. This is a tone of voice to somebody who was convicted of procuring children, procuring girls, young girls who were children, procuring them for child prostitution, and he was fawned over after that conviction, after the plea bargaining, and we know plea bargaining, it's saying, yes, I'm guilty, can I have a lower charge? If the lowest charge you're copping for, you're admitting to, is procuring a girl for child prostitution, well, you should not be, nobody should have that person in their social sphere ever again. And that's the judgment. And so I think when it comes out, we'll see. But some of these things were in the public domain. It was in the Financial Times because it'd been disclosed in the US. And I think that question of your judgment, it goes to the heart of all of this. And judgment goes to the heart of leadership. And leadership goes to the heart of the trust that countries' voters have in their elected officials.
And just to make clear, John, for many people who are listening, trying to understand what it is that, to the extent to which Peter Mandelson stands accused of and wholeheartedly denies, this is what the police investigation is looking at. Links to these email exchanges related to the file suggesting that Mr. Mandelson passed on market-sensitive government information to Epstein. They include a 2009 memo in which Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, his policy advisor, Nick Butler, wrote about the UK's struggling economy and recommended selling off government-held assets in order to raise public funds. That's number one. Another exchange includes Mr. Mandelson giving Epstein advance notice of a €500 billion bailout by the EU to save the euro in 2010. He was business secretary at the time. Now, what's your feeling about the information, that the allegations here, and the possible ramifications for the British government and what that could have done at the time?
So, yeah, as you said, Peter Mandelson contests these allegations. The allegations, if proven true, are utterly, utterly shocking that a cabinet minister of the United Kingdom, a time of huge international crisis, the global financial crisis, at a time that required European solidarity. We weren't in the weren't in the eurozone, but we're part of the European Union, part of the leadership addressing that. That the information you receive confidentially as a very, very senior minister, cabinet minister in the UK government, that you casually send it off to one of your close associates. At that moment, somebody who had been convicted for procuring a girl for child prostitution, you send that information off, and it appears that there was a prospect of financial gain, at the very least, for Jeffrey Epstein in that exchange of information. And that, I think, is the thing which has set so many people in the Labour Party who knew, as I did, and respected, as I did, Peter Mandelson, that it feels treasonous. It feels against the national interest. It feels against the morality of being a cabinet minister in the UK government. And it's that, I think, which has led to the shock and the anger, and is why this issue is not going away.
A final thought for now, John. It's been great and very interesting to talk to you tonight. Returning to where we started on to Keir Starmer, and going back to what I said at the beginning, that your influence previously on predecessor of Mr. Starmer, Tony Blair. If you had a word in the ear of Keir Starmer like you did to Tony Blair right now, what would you say to him? Would you be telling him to resign?
In a crisis, I always say, one, tell the truth. The truth will not set you free, but if you slip up in any way, that will drag you down. And secondly, in a crisis, you have to tell the truth, give your account, and then you have to make amends. What are the amends? And you have to make those. There are reforms you have to bring in, and you have to bring them in hard and fast. You have to, in a crisis, you crash through the crisis by your action, you gain confidence, you crash through, or you crash, but you have to be moving. And I fear we're going to get into a classic British civil service, bureaucratic approach, which is slow and careful and cautious. We don't need slow, we need speed. Speed kills. Speed could kill this as an issue if there was a way that Keir Starmer could show what he had learned personally, what he did wrong, and how he's going to fix this for the country.
It sounds like a real life house of cards, John. Great to talk to you tonight. As you say, as I said before, Peter Mandelson strongly denies any wrongdoing. John McTernan, a political strategist, former advisor to Tony Blair. We'll speak again soon.